Ever since James Harden touched down in Houston, he slowly made his way to being one of the best players in the league. You may not like his play style, or you may even think he's annoying to watch, but there's no denying how effective he is. Harden has been the best player at his position since the injury of Kobe Bryant in 2013. He's gone on to score a lot of points and do things we haven't seen since Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain when it comes to scoring the ball. He's racked up amazing individual accolades, such as 2 scoring titles and soon to be 3 once they continue with the NBA season. He's led the league in assists in 2017 and finally won an MVP award in 2018. I think everyone knows how good James Harden is at this point, but I think he gets constantly criticized for not being as good in the playoffs. And to his credit, I think it's an unfair criticism. I think Harden is fine in the playoffs. He's had his moments where he's on fire and goes on to have big games, such as Game 1 2018 first round versus the Timberwolves, where he scored 44 points on 15 for 26 shooting while shooting 7 for 12 from 3. Or even Game 3 2017 first round versus OKC, where he dropped 44 points. Game 3 2017 versus the Spurs, where he had 43 on 14 of 28 shooting. Even Game 1 2018 first round versus the Jazz, where he dropped 41, shooting 7 for 12 from 3. And many more games like this. When we talk about James Harden, we have to discuss his play style. He has a very gimmicky play style. The way he scores is very different, with step back threes, floaters, and his ability to draw fouls, 2 of the hardest shots in basketball. In the playoffs, defenses tighten up, and it's harder for him to get those buckets that he's used to. Yes, as you guys know, I'm a huge James Harden fan, but at the same time, I have to take a step back and be objective. There has been times where James Harden has come up small. There's been times where he's had horrible games to create this narrative of him being a choker. And a few games that come to mind are Game 2 2015 Western Conference Finals, when Harden had a chance to win the game on the final possession, but froze. It ended up getting trapped in a double team and turning the ball over.
Seconds remaining. Harden throws it up top to Howard, back to Harden. Harden tied up, knocked loose, picked up, and the game is over. Golden State hangs on.
Also, Game 5 2015, Harden had arguably his worst game ever in the playoffs. With the Rockets being down 3-1, he went out there and set a record. Not a good record, but a bad record. That was the game where he infamously turned the ball over 13 times. But no moment was worse than May 11th, 2017, Game 6 versus the Spurs in the second round, when Harden had the worst game of his career. Being a Rockets fan, this game still gives me nightmares to this day. After beating the Thunder in 5 games in the first round, the Rockets would be matched up against the Spurs. Going into Game 6 of this series, I think everyone thought the Rockets would push this series to Game 7, especially since the Spurs' best player Kawhi Leonard will be sitting the game out after rolling his ankle in the third quarter of their previous game. This game was given to the Rockets on a silver platter, but once tip-off came and the first few moments of the game passed by, you could see that this was a different James Harden we were seeing. Earlier in this series, Harden was doing his thing. Before Game 6, he was averaging 27 points while dishing out 12.5 assists. But this Game 6 was different. Watching this game, a few things came to my mind. He was extremely passive. He was not aggressive whatsoever. He was careless with the ball, and that resulted in his 6 turnovers. Just some of the plays he was making just didn't make sense. Him giving up the ball where he had a great look at a shot or to the basket. He was just overly passing the ball when he needed to be more aggressive and take advantage of the Spurs not having Kawhi Leonard. Even off the pick and roll, he was thinking pass instead of score. It was like he was playing hot potato with the ball. It looked like he did not want the ball in his hands at all. And being a Rockets fan, it really hurt. Like, it hurt my soul to see Harden go out like this, especially that year, because that was the year we first got Mike D'Antoni and things started to click. Mike D'Antoni put Harden at the point guard position, and he had the best season of his career at the time. He averaged 29 points per game while leading the league in assists with 11 and grabbing 8 rebounds per game. But it's crazy, the only thing you remember about that season is his Game 6 performance. Harden only attempted 11 shots that game, which is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? embarrassing. As the best player on the team, and your team facing elimination, and you come out and have a game like that, oh yeah, the criticism was definitely warranted for a performance like that. The Rockets ended up losing that game by 39 points. With 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, the fans at the Toyota Center started to leave because they knew their season was over. After that game, Harden had the narrative of being a choker attached to his name. And as a Harden fan, I don't necessarily think he's a choker. I think choker is the wrong word. There are times where he definitely underperforms and really struggles, but why should that define who he is? And I'm not being biased, but I really do think the criticism he gets sometimes can be a little exaggerated. When it comes to the playoffs, his numbers do dip quite a bit, but that's because the way the referees call the game is different from the way they call it in the regular season. During the regular season, Harden thrives at creating contact and getting to the line for some of his easy points. But in the playoffs, the referees aren't having that. His play style and success is relied on how the referees officiate him. Plus in the playoffs, defenses tighten up and create a solid game plan to keep him under control. I think he has bad games just like everyone else, but his bad games get amplified for some reason. Maybe it's a little bad luck or whatever, but I'm still waiting on the day for James Harden to lead the Rockets to a championship so he can shut up the haters, shut up the doubters, and shut up the internet trolls for good.